have to ask questions. There's something so beautiful and powerful about asking questions. In fact, that's what got me hooked into coaching, is the pure coaching conversation I had. What I also know to be true is that sometimes people just don't know and they're really stuck. And in that moment, they may need a guidance. They may need to be educated. They may need a consultant.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Days End Podcast. We are welcomed by Foram over at Amalavita Coaching, and we are excited for this episode to dive into the background and everything that we are able to do to bring value to the audience. Everybody, welcome Foram to the Days End Podcast.
Thank you, Michael. So happy to be here.
Yeah, same here. And so really, I would love to really start with how you got to the coaching business and what did your career and life look like before?
All right, let's start from the very beginning.
Love it.
So I was pre-med in college, and this will all tie in together. I was pre-med in college. If we take a step back from that, I was born in India and I moved here at the age of 9. When we moved here for a very specific reason, to provide me and my brother with education and opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise. So we did give up a comfortable life. We came here with nothing. We didn't know any English. So it's a very typical story that you hear of immigrants. Now, keep that in mind, that when we moved here, we had nothing and all we wanted was stability. Growing up, there's a few careers that we have heard of that provide stability. You got a doctor, you have a lawyer, you have an engineer, or you have anything in accounting, finance. My brother's an engineer. I went down that doctor path. So fast forward, college, pre-med, I'm taking the MCAT, and standardized exams are really typical for me, especially as ESL, English as Second Language. And I remember one day, my dad, he just comes up to me as I'm sitting for the MCAT, and he's like, why are you doing this to yourself? Why is this so important to you? I said, well, because I want to help people. Surface level answer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's like, are you sure this is the only way to help people? I'm like, yeah, Dad, there's really no other way to do it. And he's like, okay, well, there's something to be said about doing something for the sake of doing it, or you could really lean into your strengths and help people. Why don't you combine what you are already good at and how you want to make an impact? And that doesn't have to be a doctor. Of course, I'm a 20-year-old and I'm like, whatever. And I fast forward, take the MCAT, and I realize there's some legs in what my dad had just said. And so very quickly, I'm like, okay, put that aside. I went into healthcare consulting. So that was my quick pivot out of pre-med to healthcare consulting. And I liked it. It wasn't great, but I will tell you, it gave me that one thing that I really wanted, which is stability. Paying job, I got to go on a plane, I got to collect airline points. I mean, it was fantastic. What is there not to love? And so there was still a part of me that something was still nagging, like something's still missing. I'm still not really doing the thing I want. And so I started my master's in learning and organizational change. And during that time, I was given a leadership coach. Now, Michael, I will tell you at that time, whether or not this is just me or this is still widespread, I had no idea what leadership coaching was. This was over 12 years ago. I had no idea what it was. But I mean, I want my A, so I'm going to take that course. I'm going to do what I need to do. And I have my first session with my leadership coach, and I can tell you as a consultant, I walked in there saying, what, you're just going to sit here and talk to me all day? Like, where's my solution? And after that 1 hour, Michael, my whole perspective changed. How is it that you just asked me a question and made me take a step back and go, whoa, I am the problem. I did something wrong, and I need to change it. So I got curious about coaching. I found out that they had a coaching program. This was at Northwestern. And I did my coaching certification in organizational leadership coaching. And the only thing I knew is I wanted to do coaching and not consulting. I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And there's that one thing in the back of my head that's still nagging, which is stability, stability, stability. I'm sure we'll cover more of how Amalavita started, but this is the path of consulting to coaching. And a lot of it kind of just fell on my lap.
Wow, yeah, that's a really cool, like, just segue or just like things, because I feel like a lot of people that are helping and that want to help don't know, like they're kind of just always stuck in that pendulum, right? Of like, I don't know how to help. I don't know what I should be doing. I don't know the strengths that I have. So the fact that you found that early on, I mean, it is absolutely amazing. So that's a really good segue into Amalavita coaching. So how did that start for you?
Yeah. So it started so I kind of ended my coaching program saying, I want coaching to be some part of my life. I just didn't know what. And so the universe has a funny way of nudging you when it's right. And the pathways are there as long as you follow it. So in that moment, I was introduced to a coach who said, I need to meet you and I want to introduce you to somebody else. And then at first I'm like, I don't know who you are and I'm not sure, but I'm going to go for it, because what is the worst that happens? And I'm so glad I did, because this individual set me up on a blind date with my now partner and CEO, Nicole. He coached Nicole when Nicole got a promotion at her consulting job. And Nicole didn't believe in coaching. Nicole discovered that coaching seems to be, she's like, where is the consulting rigor? How do we make it so it's more accessible to people like me and it can feel like something that is relatable? Whereas, I would say even for me, I'm like, how had I never heard of coaching until somebody gave me a coach? Well, that's because no one talks about coaching at my age. No one has access to it, especially in my network. And so Nicole wanted to start a coaching business. All I wanted to do was coach, because I was just so excited about this whole practicing coaching. So Nicole says, hey, I want to build a business. I'm like, great, I just want to coach. There's a lot of emotions that actually led us to getting to Amalavita, but it was that connection together where we said, let's see if this has legs.
That's awesome. What does Amalavita mean?
Amalavita means love life.
Oh, love that. Okay. And so from that perspective and from that point on, when you were with Nicole, when did you notice that there was an actual click that you're like, okay, I might be as interested as you are?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I can tell you, let's just put ourselves in the mindset that we were in. We were both burnt out consultants, but none of us wanted to give up stability. We definitely didn't want to give up our clients. And so it felt like we had to give up, we had to choose a job with stability and benefits and be miserable, or choose having fun, loving your life, but no benefits and stability. That was our mindset. Now, Nicole and I went to a retreat in Ecuador. The slogan of Ecuador is Love Life. This is where it really started to build together, where there were a lot of emotions to it. Essentially, Nicole and I got to a point where we said, if we don't commit to this and try at a minimum, we're not going to know if this is going to work out. We have to take a chance and we have to take a risk. And I will say we're very lucky that we have supportive partners where we had one form of stability or one form of a plan that allowed us to take a chance. It was in that moment where I knew my strengths, which is I knew that I could do the practitioner part of it. I could be the coach. But there's no way I'm building a business. That is not my strength. And Nicole was like, I have the strategic mind. I can build a business. She loves to do that. But she's like, I don't know how to coach. And it all, again, that universe giving that sign of there's somebody who wants to build a business but doesn't have the execution, and somebody who wants to execute but doesn't know how to even begin the framework of how to get there.
Oh, that's interesting. A lot of people have this mindset of like coaching and consultant. How do you differentiate it?
Great question. I think there's a very fine line between the two. And to me, the simplest form is if you're hungry and you say, Foram, I'm hungry. I'm going to say, Michael, here's a fish for you. A coach, You say, Foram, I'm hungry. I'm going to say, Michael, let's figure out how we're going to get you that fish.
One's giving, one's guiding.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's awesome. And so with Amalavita's has really grown rapidly. So even earning a spot on the Inc. 5000 list. So congratulations on that. That's an amazing accomplishment. What were, I guess, in your mind, and maybe even the spirit of Nicole as well here, what really drove the business to that point? And was there some pivotal scaling involved to make that happen? I know Inc. 5000 always isn't a goal, it's an accolation, but there's always some things in there that really drive home there. So what were those?
Yeah. I want to break, you said, what was that thing that got us there? And I'm going to say there was no one thing, because that is a myth that I just want to break for anyone listening to this. Is there is no such thing as an overnight success. Because damn, I've been waiting for an overnight success, Michael, for over 8 years, and is nothing happening overnight.
Can't agree more.
I mean, look at the amount of gray hairs that I have. That is a sign. The thing that got us there is, Nicole says this really well, is that we make millions of the right decisions, and that is how it's a compound effect. It has accumulated over time to get us to this phase. So as an example, we started and it was just me and Nicole. Then over a few years passed, and we're like, oh, people want to apply to work with Amalavita. What is that? So let's see what that can look like. Let's just try it out. It wasn't like that every single thing that we've done has been we have this future plan and that's exactly what we're head toward. Is we're constantly keeping a gauge of what's happening around us. Does it make sense for us to try this? COVID was a great time where we're like, are we gonna have to shut down doors? What's gonna happen here? So very quickly we realized that during COVID, people were stuck indoors and we're starting to question, what do I want to do with my life? We hadn't really leaned into that as a coaching company. We did a little bit of that. We did a little bit of life coaching. We did a little bit of leadership coaching. And we really leaned into, if you're stuck at home trying to figure out what brings you joy and fulfillment, you come with Amalavita. And so this is an example of, we made thousands of decisions that were the right thing to do for us and for the members that we serve, which has accumulated to the success that we continue to have.
Awesome. This is a segue to my next question. Coaching industry is super crowded with a bunch of false gurus that always want to say they have the best thing, or they did 1 year inside of some business and now they're a guru in that. Do you think on what you just said is actually what sets you apart?
I just said, which is, helping you find
helping people find that, right? Making those little decisions and really leaning into those little decisions that really set you apart in the fact that there is a ton out there, but are there actual coaching businesses that care about each step of the way, right? And it seems that your business is exactly that. It's like, hey, we're not just here to run through methodologies that we found somewhere. These are tried and true, and we understand what you're dealing with, and we know how to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I as you said, the coaching industry is very crowded. And if someone says, I guarantee that in 6 months, this transformation is going to happen, it's not true, because there is no one magic thing. It is exactly what you said, which is a compound of decisions that need to happen. So one thing that really does differentiate Amalavita is that we really believe in having a methodology and a process that has worked over thousands of clients. We need to have a perspective. We need to have a strong methodology that says, if you want to figure out what you want next in your career, we're going to show you exactly how that's going to work from a process perspective. Now, what is also true is that Michael's perspective and Michael's life is very different than Forum's life. So how we go about it and what needs to happen as part of this process needs to be tailored to you.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's really good.
That's how we keep to me, it's almost like they're contradictory, but they play together so beautifully, which is have a proven process and it's personalized. And those two come together.
Yeah, I like that a lot, right? I think, I've had some coaching, and I've done executive coaching as well, and it's probably one of the best things I've ever done, right? It allows you to hone a mindset that you never thought you could before, and allows you to think just a little bit differently around how you make an actual change that moves forward, right? Because I think we all make changes, but it doesn't actually move us forward. We're just doing it because we feel like we have to, or a societal change told us that you had to or I had to, right? And so we make it in that belief that, okay, like, this is going to solve some stuff, but it never really does. And we're in the same boat 7 months later, right? But executive coaching actually moves like your life forward, right? And I couldn't agree more with you there. And but on that note, with so much happening in the coaching industry and with so much out there, is just like, would you change any one thing? Like, is there something that you would change about the
many
coaching
things.
industry?
Are you just going to ask me for one thing to change?
You can do as many as you want here.
You know what it is, and this has become a strong perspective of Amalavita, and I've gone through coach training, okay? So any coaches who are listening to this, don't come at me. I strongly believe in this, which is, in order to be successful, I don't think in order to be successful as a coach, but to really, as you said, Michael, take someone from point A to point B, to have forward movement, true change. I don't think a coach can stay in pure coaching mode. So let me double click on that. If you're a certified coach, I hope at a minimum you work with somebody who's gone through some training, because anyone can call themselves a coach. If you're a certified coach, the first thing you learn in coach training is that a coach cannot and should not tell anyone what they should do. You have to ask questions. There's something so beautiful and powerful about asking questions. In fact, that's what got me hooked into coaching, is the pure coaching conversation I had. What I also know to be true is that sometimes people just don't know, and they're really stuck. And in that moment, they may need a guidance. They may need to be educated. They may need a consultant. As an example, if you come to me and you say, Foram, I just don't even know where to get started. Let me say, all right, Michael, well, I have this decision-making framework that I want you to go through together. And let's just go through it together. Right now, I'm guiding you and educating you. I'm not coaching you. Because a coach might say, well, where do you think you should go? But you just started the conversation saying, I have no idea. That's where I would say it's really important to take up the coaching hat when it serves that member.
That's really good. I don't know if a lot of people know that, or even coaches know that, right? I want to say, like, most of the ones that I have met want to stay in that space, right? I'm a coach, so I'm going to act the part, right? But I like what you said, right? If it's about stepping out of that character role and going, hey, like, okay, we don't need to be coaching right now. Let's actually extract some stuff to figure out, like, and guide you along this path, because the coaching part you're not understanding. So maybe this part we can make it full circle,
Exactly.
And that's really cool. There's not a lot of people doing that, and I think and that in itself is just another factor of what sets you guys apart as well. Just because I've had 2 executive coachings, and I've done Tony Robbins executive coaching, right? And that wasn't really a part of it. It was my coach was most definitely a part of, like, that coaching character role for a very long time. It helped me tremendously, but there's times where I was like, do I need a life coach also? Right? In terms, like, maybe I don't just need a business coach. Let me get a few coaches in my life, but really it's just about a coach breaking that character to say, okay, hey, look, like, let me put this aside. This is between you and me. Let's do some guidance here. So that's cool. I like that a lot. Wow. So, we can go on and on about that, but I love in the age of today and technology and how surpassing technology can be right now. How has it played a pivotal role in your business, or is it still very much personal?
It's still very much personal. The way we started we've toyed around with several kind of models. And from the very beginning, since Amalavita has started, we've always known that technology was going to enable coaching. And what I mean by that is, when members come to us and when they're coaching with Amalavita, we're always thinking about how can you maximize a coaching session? And in order to do that, that sometimes looks in the form of, can you do some work beforehand? So we created these things called e-coaching programs, which guide people on through a certain topic. So as an example, if we're working on you understanding who you are, well, that means trying to understand what you're passionate about. What are your strengths? What do you value? What's your purpose? I could spend 5 sessions just on those topics, or I can ask I can ask you to do the e-coaching programs, which mimic a coaching conversation. So they ask you same questions that I might ask that are a little bit more general. For example, I will say, in the program, it will ask questions like, when was the last time you did something that you completely lost track of time? If you could do anything in the world where money wasn't an option, like you weren't even getting paid for it, what would you do? These elicit similar responses, which point to your passions. So we followed the same methodology for strengths and actually many different topics. What then happens is that information, all that reflection goes to the coach as well. And so now you can go step into the coaching conversation where the coach can say, going through your reflection, what I noticed is there was a discrepancy between what you're currently doing today and there's nothing that's utilizing your passions. Is that why you're feeling so burnt out today? Right? So now you can really dig in as opposed to having a surface level conversation.
That's good. Wow. Yeah, I'm letting that digest a little bit, because that's a whole different way of doing it. It's not a normal process, right? At least that I've experienced also. And so I think that's a really good way to do it, as well as to extract what you need from a client, right? Being able to get everything that you can out of them, because ultimately that's what coaching is, right? Maximizing the time that you guys have to be able to advance someone's life. And so being able to do that in a moment's notice and doing it beforehand, like that homework, allows them to get into the mindset as well. Because I remember going into coaching for the first time, and it was super awkward. And I was like, man, like, I'm about to tell you some stuff that I haven't told anybody, but I don't know you from Adam, man. Like, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you're about to go debrief with after this. Like, I just don't know. It is, so I'm dropping a lot of stuff, and I'm going, hey, how confidential really are we doing here, right? Am I gonna? I don't want to be a success story, online for you. Like, I just want help. That's all I need is help, right? I need hone the thoughts that are in my head into this box. Let me be creative here and not here, and so that's really cool. With building your business, I built a couple myself, and I've had challenges along the way. I've had to borrow money for payroll, and I've had to do all the sorts of stuff. What were some challenges like in the early days of Amalavita that you were just like, all right, let's just push through this. Like, there's some cool stuff on this side.
First year, I'm like, is this really a thing? I'm like, how are we going to get clients who are not our friends, who are just taking pity on us and, saying yes to, yeah, sure, I'll like participate in your services. Like, to build something.
Right.
So in that first year, I mean, the first thing was, okay, are we even going to get people we don't know to be our client? Yeah. Is this going to work? Then the other part of it is we just made so many mistakes. I mean, as a specific example, when we first started to have coaches on the team, we had a model, and this was so dumb. We had a model where we're like, we'll just give you 75% of whatever we bring in.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, like, dumb. Because the whole thing, at that point, we were thinking it would scale, and there would be a less human component, and there would be focus on more on the e-coaching part. No. that shit did not work. So, I mean, I'm going on a tangent. Your question is really around like what were in the early days, what were the things that really kind of, all the mistakes we made, and how did we know this had legs? We didn't. We had no idea that this would have legs. And actually, I think you're not going to get that from anybody but yourself. So if you're in the early stages of your career or building a business and you're looking for that external validation or somebody to give you the confidence, don't. You have to look inward.
Well, yeah, I love what you said there, right? I think so many, entrepreneurship has become a buzzword, and everybody wants to be one. Every 16-year-old wants to be a TikToker. Everybody wants to build a big business, and it's all fun and games until you get kicked in the teeth a couple times, and you're going, okay, this crap is really freaking hard, right? Building a business is difficult. It's tiring. You have zero benefits. You don't have anything, right? But that's the risk. When was there a moment, or maybe we've had other podcast guests, and they're just like, hey, I haven't even had that moment yet. Was there a moment for you where you're like, okay, I think this can work, or okay, there's some light at the end of the tunnel here. Let's keep going.
Yeah, it's I love this question for so many reasons, because just last week, so my business partner and I, Nicole, we do our one-on-ones at a pub across the office every Thursday. So we're over at Jake's Pub, and almost every month I ask her, do we still have a business? Are we still trending? So we're 8 years in, and I can just tell you that I'm still asking myself that question. And she goes, yes, Foram. Yes, we're a business, and we're growing, and it's going to be okay. Because this anxiety and the problems, while they evolve year after year, they just take on a different shape and size. And we are not VC backed. We are bootstrapped. So a nice bad quarter means, fuck, we're not paying ourselves again, right?
Yep.
Any bad quarter goes back to that whole spin. What are we going to do? What do we need to do? And everything feels like it's on fire. And yet the highs are highs and the lows are really low. And so going back to your question, was that one pivotal moment? The moment we proved out that we had a unit economics, like, hey, these economics work and we've shown growth year after year, we knew we had something. Now the problems just keep changing. And I still ask myself this question every month, like, do we still have a business? Are we doing okay? I just need someone to validate me.
That's awesome. Going back to those early days, when you and Nicole like really started, and you were like, I just want to be coaching. She's like, and I don't know anything about business. I don't know if you know, but that is like a lesson in entrepreneurship right there. Do you think it was like that was a pivotal moment of going, okay, I have my lane, she has her lane, and you guys won't collide?
We collide all the time, purposefully. Purposefully.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have a whole conversation on co-founders, and I'm probably one of the luckiest people in the world to have found Nicole, and our relationship, like, it works, knock on wood, because we are aligned on our values, and yet we have very complementary strengths. Very complementary strengths. I wouldn't be able to do this if it was just me.
Yeah.
So fast forward, right? You asked, well, what's kind of do you guys stay in your lanes? Yes and no. Like, if there is a financial question, I will go to her. If there's a strategy piece, I will go to her. But that doesn't mean I don't have an opinion. It doesn't mean I don't have a perspective. Like, I'm very financially conservative, and she's not. So she's going to give me the first face of, here's what where our budget's going to look like. Here's what I'm thinking. And I'm going to say, you know what? I actually feel that maybe in case, the risk side of me, because remember, stability, hello. I'm like, well, if you're in selection year, what if we had a few bad quarters? Can we actually scale it back? So we actually work really well in that way. And I will say on her side, because she's not a coach practitioner, she's able to put on a business hat when it comes to coaching. She's like, well, why don't we have a process that we can scale? I'm like, well, because coaching is supposed to be so personal. And she's like, yes, and also someone needs to understand what coaching means. So why can't we outline a step-by-step protocol? And I would have never once thought to say that. So I think in a beautiful way, they come together nicely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've had multiple co-founders, and I think it's extremely important, one, to be aligned, as well as you need to have not only similar strengths in the sense that you can bounce ideas off each other and you actually know what each one's talking about, but also being able to say, okay, hey, I can take this and run with it, right? You can take that and run with it, right? And then, hey, we'll meet up down the road, but hey, right now, like, this is your lane because I don't have capacity for that lane. And so that's really cool, and we can have a massive conversation about co-founders and equity splits and VC venture. It's absolutely insane of like all that stuff, right? But I think it's extremely important, right? And a lot of people don't know, and it's honestly, it's the unsexiness of this part of the business, right? Nobody really cares about it. Everybody wants to be the practitioner, right? I think this is my lane. This is what I do. This is where I want to stay. And for people that are kind of out there in that mindset, how do you get somebody out of that? How do you coach somebody to go, hey, like, you got to think of this in a different way?
Somebody who thinks that they should just stay in their lane.
Yeah, stay in their lane. Well, or maybe they have a partner and a co-founder, right? So let's say there's three of them and they all have different strengths, right? So one's in sales, one's marketing, and we'll say the one's operations, right? We'll kind of just make it easy. But there's crossover and strengths between all three of them. But maybe the sales guy wants to cross over into marketing. He usually does. And the marketing guy kind of wants to move over into the sales. But at some points that can be detrimental as well. Like from a coaching perspective, how do you guide somebody that says, hey, look, like, yes, it's good, but let me have you think a different way?
Yes, that's a really great question. One of the things that I think about often is, what are we doing to set boundaries and expectations? I think one of the biggest causes for conflict is when expectations aren't set clearly throughout every step of the way. So as an example, I'll just use Nicole myself. So I'm the coaching expert and she's the business expert, which means generally if she has a perspective and I have a perspective, it's one of the things that we both of us have said is whoever domain it is, they get the final say.
Okay.
And when the other person has an opinion, they quantify that opinion with how strongly they feel about that opinion.
Okay.
So, as an example, if I have a perspective, I may say, Michael, I feel really strongly that our sales process needs to be X way. And I'm a 5. 5 means I feel so strongly that I want to have a conversation with you about it. As opposed to a 1, which is, I have an opinion. I'm not so strong about it, but it's a perspective that I have.
Right.
So when you quantify it, what it does, it helps you really understand to what degree are they saying this is really important to them. The other part of it is whenever I find people in other people's lanes, it's because they think they can do it better. So now there's a trust component. And so the conversation I will have is, what makes you believe that this other person won't make the right call? Because that's what I assume is happening. When you are constantly giving opinions, it's because you don't think this person's making a right call. What makes you believe that they won't? And have you had that conversation with them?
That's good. That's really good. I mean, like that's a master class in itself, to be completely honest, because I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? And that's even for individuals that don't know each other. Now let's bring a friend component into that. Like they've known each other for like 20 years and like, let's start a business together because we get along so well.
I don't ever recommend that, but yes.
I agree. I remember somebody telling me that if you're going to go in with your friends, like never be an operational partner, right? Like always be on the outside and never have a decision within the business itself, right? Like be a supportive person, but don't be an operational partner. And I've held that to be true as well. Right now, it's I've had, like I said, I've had partnerships that went wrong because we were best friends. We started a business and it went awry and it ruins friendships, right? It does happen, and they suck. You know what? I mean, we live and we learn, and I'll tell you today, when I have a very different outlook today of how to approach partnerships than I ever had before. And I don't think I ever would have had that perspective. And I'm able to help other people as well. When I get asked what does this look like? I'm trying to start a business. It's my best friend. Is it okay? And I'm like, it is, but with a lot of ifs.
Yeah, I have a lot of qualifying statements here.
There's a lot that you should meet first before we even go down the road of what you guys are trying to start. But it's really cool, though. I've never really seen somebody do coaching like you do. And on the flip side, I want to go back to the e-coaching. Is that a massive part of your business right now, or is that a standalone product, or is that very much just a part of your onboarding process?
It's honest, and it's just something that's just included in our coaching memberships. One of the things that we learned is that people don't have a lot of FU money. I don't know if it's okay to swear, but I will.
Oh, go for it.
People don't have fuck you money for coaching, right? It's expensive. And unless you're a 1%er, you can have unlimited sessions. But if people are paying out of their pocket, there's a limited budget. So I'm just wasting through, and I'm calling it wasting, but if I'm just going through session by session, just getting to a point of, well, what's my passion? I didn't move you anywhere. I just gave you one data point, but I didn't actually move you forward. And so we started the whole e-coaching concept of how do we get people to have more value through coaching? And what we now do is we make them optional. A lot of our members will use them, but some people don't like self-directed learning, especially those who have a hard time with, maybe it's a type of learning preference, right? So if you're on the spectrum, this might be really hard for you because having homework is really hard for you, right? Especially if it's like ADHD, it's like, well, that's a lot of steps. I just need to do it focused in a session. So one thing that we do is we try to make it so that this is there for you as a resource. It's highly recommended, but if you can't commit to it, that's okay. There's going to be other ways that we can help you navigate through it.
That's really cool. I think a lot of people will try to capitalize on that, right? Whether they're like, oh, we have a coaching business, so let me have that as a standalone product, and then they'll try to use that as a kind of like a funnel into like a more expensive coaching business, right? That's usually the model. Right, like, hey, okay, I have a couple courses, or I have a process for you. I want you to download this, and I want you to do this, and then we'll funnel you in when you have the money type thing. But the fact that you have it all encompassing, I think is really a more comprehensive way of doing it, right? Because it involves both sides. Like you said, nobody really has screw you money. They just don't have it, right? And it's hard to like coaching is expensive, right? I mean, it can get very expensive. It can get very expensive, and I've had to turn down a couple people because I was like, that's not happening, man. I don't know you from Adam, and I'm not putting my money there. There ain't no way.
Exactly. And you don't know. And I mean, don't get me wrong. We've tried to sell. We actually started off. That was our whole business model. Was just only e-coaching products before we started on coaching. And what we realized is that it was very transactional. And that just goes against who we are. It's like, we're not here for transactional results. And if you are, go somewhere else. Because what you get from that program is what you put in the e-coaching programs. Because you learn these things and you're like, wait, I'm still feeling a lot of discomfort, or I actually don't know.
The slowest way to scale, right, is human capital, right? And so how have you balanced scaling the business when you have a very large human capital aspect to what you do as well, right? How have you scaled it that way, and what did that look like in terms of pivoting?
During COVID time is when we started to really expand and grow. Before, the mindset had been, let's just do it as much as we can ourselves and have a bunch of contractors, and it came down to also culture. when you have people who are affiliated but not in it, that motivation, energy, and the intangible of what they're willing to do and go up and beyond is very different. And so we started with our first hire and then our second hire, and we realized what it could do for Amalavita. Then over time, the other part of scaling, as you mentioned, is at one point we were hiring, 10 coaches every cohort. And that's
Wow.
that's a lot of coaches in 1 year. That we actually realized was a wrong strategy, because it was before that, I could tell you every single coaches of who their family is, where they live, what they're doing. Like, we were talking every single day. And as we continued to grow, I'm like, oh, I don't remember, like, I don't know where they're located, or I didn't know the simplest things about their background. And that came at the compromise of our culture. So we actually scaled it back. And you actually talked about this earlier in our conversation, which the hottest thing is, how can I be an overnight success and how can I scale so quickly? And I actually cringe at that because I don't want to scale quickly. I'm okay with the snail's pace growth as long as we maintain integrity, because that is our product. Our product is our delivery, our coaches. It's all human based. And so if we can't have the internal connection and if people don't understand what we do or why we do it, how are our coaches supposed to represent Amalavita? How are they supposed to feel invested in?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you said that, right? I think we're at a point where I think a lot of people are trying to understand that scaling to 1 million in a year is unreasonable. Does it happen? Absolutely. But it's an unreasonable expectation. And I think people are going, okay, like I can do this a little slower. Right? I mean, you look at celebrities, right? I mean, a lot of celebrities are using their celebrity status to blow up businesses. But at some point, your celebrity status has no status quo within scaling that business, right? It actually takes a skill set that you need to develop along the way. And so I think a lot of people are realizing, okay, I can go a little slower, and it's okay to go a little slower. And I think it's funny. Most people say, oh, well, that's the trend to like build a slow business. I'm like, no, it's just the way to do it. It's just what you do, right?
It's the way to do it. Yes.
Exactly. It's the way to do it.
You have to have perseverance and resilience, and you also need to have that runway. Are you okay with that? Is that okay with your lifestyle? I mean, we started this business and I had just gotten married, and Nicole hadn't been married yet. I've now had 2 kids. She's had a kid. I've had a big loss in my family. I mean, we have gone through every big highs and lows together as we've also tried to grow the business. And at some point, I also think about, well, if we had just been an overnight success, or had we scaled quickly, gosh, maybe life would have been easier, because then I wouldn't have to feel like I'm split in 5 different directions.
Yeah, right.
But then
I like what you're saying before. What you said in there is about perseverance. What's more important, grit or talent? Why?
Because I think talent can be learned.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And so with that, there are a lot of organizations, and I think a lot of people that are doing away with just college degrees in general, right? Because I think they're starting to understand that somebody that can just hammer it out and persevere is actually a better employee, or an actual better partner, or, insert here, right? In the age of AI today, and what it is today, and what it's become, and the buzzwords, what is your thought on it as you sit today, and what do you think it can be in the future as it pertains to coaching?
I think if you can use AI to get through, just like how our e-coaching programs, I think, were probably like a precursor to AI in the most non-generative way. It's a static form. But the intention was exactly what AI is doing today, which is to give you a baseline understanding so you can go deeper yourself with the nuances of you and your world around you. And I think that's exactly where AI is today, and where it's going to continue to go, is that it should arm you with the baseline knowledge. As a simplest example, if you're redoing your resume, start with an AI template. Don't go to a career coach right away and say, rewrite my resume. No, have something that's already really good so that you can spend that time with the resume coach or a career coach on talking about how you're showing up, what your executive presence is looking like, what your brand is, how you need to really stand out. That's how you should be leveraging your coach and using AI to really be that kind of, as I say, the foundation that you can build on.
Absolutely. Do you think AI will ever have a place, not replace, but a place in a practitioner's tool set as it pertains to a client? Not a back-end process, but a full front-end process.
I use it all the time.
That's awesome.
I use it all of the time.
Well, so with an up-and-coming coach, say there's a coach, they're going through the Northwestern certification process, and they're going, I want to go this path. And with all the resources that they have today, what would you tell them how would you tell them to utilize something like AI to help them?
Your coach is only as good as the tools that they have, and the tools that you learn from a 1 year or 2 year program is still very limited as opposed to the millions of frameworks that are out there. So if I'm coaching someone and they're talking about, I don't know, change in AI, within a scaling company, I would use AI to say, all right, what's a good framework when a client is stuck with this particular problem in this world? What's a framework that we can try to use to at least start to map out where they are and where they want to go? AI can give me a new tool, as opposed to me looking at this limited set of toolbox that I have where I can't think of a different way to support them.
That's good. Throughout the podcast, I've seen you lean on the side of the conservative, right? You want the stability, right? It probably still plays a role in some states, some ways today. But you've also built a business over the last 8 years. And so where would you mark yourself on the scale of risk tolerance?
Really funny, because if it was just me, I would be highly I would be so risky and I would go all in. It's not me, because every single decision that I made impacts people on the payroll. And it impacts my clients, and it impacts our coaches. So for the fear of failing other people and their livelihoods, I'm very risk averse.
So that's really good. I love that you said that, because I think a lot of founders put ego into their scaling a business, right? They'll say, oh, well, this is the way that we have to do it, and sometimes it's the right way, or sometimes it's really the wrong way, right? And the entire business, and I mean, we see startups failing all the time right now, and it's probably because, well, I think there was some ego in some decisions, and they made the wrong decisions, and here we are. If somebody's just starting out in their business, this is the best idea they ever had, how do you have them change that in their head of going, okay, like it might be only you right now, but it's not always going to be, right? Is that coachable? Is that learned, and just by trial and error?
Yeah, I think it is learned. I do think it's coachable. I think it takes a big mindset to get people to think from, this is my glory, as opposed to what is the legacy that I'm leaving behind.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Right. I think more people need to think about that, right? It's like, hey, this isn't, if you're building this with an exit in mind, then, so be it, right? But if you're building this to like outlive something, then there's a whole different level of a way to think about how you're going to build the business, right? Or is it, what is your corporate structure? Like, how are you going to scale the culture that you're looking to do, right? Which is literally like the hardest thing to do, right? Scaling culture in a massive way, because it goes from the top down, which is a bunch of pressure already, right? Because you're like, oh crap, I got to perform, and I can't be an a-hole all the time, but like, because I don't want them to think that this is the way it's happened, but it's really cool, like Amalavita coaching, and how you guys scaled and what you guys have done throughout this entire process, which I'm very impressed with, and I know a lot of people will be as well. And I kind of want to end here on a couple questions for you. If there's a listener out there and they are just starting out and they are multi-passionate individuals, how do they hone in?
Such a beautiful question. And I think that is the problem in this question, as you said, how do they hone in? Sometimes you don't need to.
Oh, that's good.
It doesn't always look like it's one lane. And so my most important question to that individual is, what does success look to you right now?
Mm-hmm. That's really good. I love that.
I want to build all of my passions. It could be, I just need financial stability. In which case, my answer then would be, pick the passion that's going to give you the most money, right? If that's what it is right now, you have to have some sort of a what is all of this accumulating to? And the question has to be bigger than what you're trying to solve for.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. And I think one question is, what piece of advice do you have for anybody listening that you'd like to leave?
Don't think you have to do it alone.
That's gonna hit somebody in the chest. That's good. I love that, Forum. Thank you. This has been a pleasure, and I love it. And I think our audience is really going to enjoy this as well. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it so much.